moving out of Paradise Resort is going to be interesting. It's like, what, 3 teams over on Paradise Resort, and D Xavier is the one right smack outside of that area. They have a bit of cover, they have some terrain to play with as well. Maybe what they can do is just wait for VPE, FaZe, and Team Secret to fight off each other to get into the circle. Boom Esports and D Xavier could go for crossfires instead and, try and pick off fights. But I think VPE have already anticipated this. That's why they have a nice, I would say, more spread out formation, that they can get some catches off on the outer end toward Boom Esports while still being able to make space from them away from the other 2 teams over in Paradise Resort.
Yeah, that's true. And Vampire Esports might actually be pitted into a circumstance where they have to either brute force a fight up against Boom Esports or further commit to anything that could potentially happen later on in Paradise Resort. So for the rest of Claw, they're making a very deep dive coming in from the south side. They do spot some straggling units coming in pretty late, and that's going to be Cellcom Digit Alliance taking those high grounds. Jamie, great catch as he pins down one member, and that's going to be Zellers already down and out. No chance for reprieve as we have that big nade connecting onto Boboho, and just like that, loses 2 members, and CD Alliance is just holding firm.
Quick to get that positioning, always just lying in wait for players to rotate towards them, but Team Secret as well, not out of the woods. And CD Alliance taking another fight over on the other end of the map. This desperation play coming in from Team Secret is just so evident. Forced to run out of the compound straight into CD Alliance's hands, and now one by one their numbers dwindle. And it's hard for them to hold because it's only 1 member left.
Yeah, it's just hordes and hordes of players moving towards the direction of City Alliance, and here comes the cavalry. Leon supports with the DPS. As he pushes forward, he does actually pin 1 member out, looking for another one, but not quite enough against Doki. He will be able to resuscitate some form of area of ground for SK. Now, it's going to be a standstill between the 2, but the Blue Zone's already choking out the rest of SK.
SK, just unlucky for them, the circle shifted and they weren't able to break into as the circle held as well. A lot of these players have a lot of control of their area they're holding here. Olio fighting the blue zone, making sure that the rest of SK could not come in as well. It's looking great for them because the amount of pressure that CD Alliance is putting to the other members such as SK and even Team Secret is just phenomenal. They cannot come through. The only team that's potentially going to fight them for this compound, for the area, could be D Xavier, but so far D Xavier has been staying fairly quiet throughout all of this cacophony.
Yeah, they don't exactly have to exert any form of pressure towards CD Alliance because they don't exactly have the best of angles. All they really have to worry about is up against FaZe Clan, as there is a battle erupting up there with the rest of Vampire Esports in the mix at the very same time. So it's plenty of damage being done to the rest of Vampires. No points whatsoever being gained, and the rest of Boom Esports are closing in on the same time. So they are absolutely sandwiched, but it is going to be a battle erupting between Boom as well as the rest of those members of FaZe Clan.
It's a 4-way fight northern side with D Xavier just watching on the side. Boom Esports still has a lot of time as well to take these fights, so spread out on the northern side here. As Vampire Esports are one member still left. He's still trying to at least go down with the fight, maybe steal away a point or 2. But D Xavier, they don't want to take this. They're hiding in their compounds, not poking their heads out. But you really got to give it to CD Alliance here. They've been so active from the area, holding on to that swamp side, and they've been playing with that terrain to perfection. Anyone rotating, they go for it. Any team fighting, they join it as well. And so far, it's looking so good for them. Throughout all of these teams rotating to them, they've managed to hold, and they've only lost 1 player throughout the entirety of this team upon team coming toward the area.
Yeah, and just like that, they secured themselves 11 points. That's absolutely hefty and plenty full of chance for that chicken dinner. Here comes the jump shots coming for Mela as he will be able to connect it perfectly. But now he draws the attention of the rest of the Saber, prepping up those grenades. There's not going to be much of the angle. He gets 2 instead with the S12K. Insane movements coming out of Mela, and he's going to be creating more of that space as VPE stands firm with him still on board.
That is what we call individual brilliance right now. And it's just them, all these him, with Nate T still very much alive. So this 1v1 could determine who exactly gets the right to break into that top northern side of that circle. The Nate clips at least onto Mela. Nate T lying in wait, but the blue zone is coming. Like it or not, these two players, they gotta go pale, pale, pale. They gotta move.
They are trying their very level best to at least find a little bit more of that space, because that blue zone is not going to be enough for them to tank it out, even if they do have just about enough meds. So Nate T, he's not too concerned, because it is Mela that needs to push right through. Speaking of pushing, it is Talon forcing their way up against two members of Claw, dancing all around. Linux tries to draw a little bit more of that heavy fire, but it's not going to be all too quite enough. Well, Pepang, he will be able to recover for now and then look to resuscitate his teammates in the scuffle. So they will have the high ground advantage up against Talon. And here comes the big drop of the nade. Might be able to find something in return, but not quite hitting just yet.
Talon's desperate. The blue zone's pushing. They have a terrain to climb as well. Kept at bay by Claw. And Alter Ego waiting in the wings as well to just steal away a pickoff or two. I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what Krypton wants to do if, say, fights were to erupt. Now that Red Face has gone down, Axel comes out, steals away that pickoff. You can start to see that Krypton is starting to strike. Claw can tell that they're desperate. He's so low right now, gets that reset. It's perfect. The shots are true here. Beautiful shot with that shotgun as well. Means that Krypton will be able to survive longer and make it into that top four. What the heck?
Wow, what a beautiful push by Krypton with such a bold move. And with that sure confidence, now he gets to retrieve whatever resources he requires in order to make the top 3 cut. Top 4 already accomplished by Alter Ego. While Boom Esports, they still have 4 members strength up against the rest of the pack, where they are also having Wunti out of Vikings to be able to spot out the rest of CD Alliance because they were too occupied defending their ground. Now it is definitely a hassle for them to cut across because that UAZ is broken and there's barely enough room for CD Alliance to work with.
2 angles watching CD Alliance here. You get reset, you're gonna fall. The blue zone's coming through as well. In this situation, what are you gonna do? They have a 2-1 formation. Yeah, Jimmy's on the northern side, but he can't do anything much to help his teammates right now. He's rushing through the circles. He's set up himself for a bit of space with those smokes as well. But like it or not, with those smokes, giving that space, it's still gonna be hard. If, say, you have so many players of MVKE pressuring them, those sprays through those smokes, they can do some lethal damage. We saw that yesterday, and it's about to happen again today. But MVKE, this time around, they were privy, they were smart. This compound, they wrestled for it against Boy Donkey with their lives, and now the rest of CD Lions are going to fall, leaving Jimmy all to his own lonesome.
Yeah, there's just no chance whatsoever that he could actually make the cut into the zone. So it's going to be the last stand. Perhaps that trade between Break could still bring in some points, but that's just not enough. No other room for him to work with, but that's 13 points. Perhaps more than enough to even overtake the winners at this current point of time. The battle continues as Krypton gets caught out by the bush. So it's between Boom versus Vikings.
Boom has been fairly safe, and to think about how late they were getting into the circle is phenomenal. From top side by Paradise Resort, they waited out fights, picked away kills in the 4-way, 5-way fight, and slowly but silently went into the circle. Now, in terms of advantage, they have the high ground terrain compared to MVKE, who have more of a compound. If the circle shifts later, it's going to be full control to Boom Esports.
True enough, and Boom, they could just play by their own strength right at this moment, where the time is on their side, the zone as well to drop with that beautiful Nate being cooked up. It's only down to Tizen, and what more can he do as the floodgates open up? Boom, looking to secure their second chicken dinner, sure, and can they turn their sides around? Apparently not. Boom will still secure it here in round 1 of day 2 PMSL Southeast Asia Summer.
Great control, great fights as well. A nice balance between aggression as well as survivability. Waiting for a 3-way, 4-way fight, parking themselves outside of the danger zone and just joining in at arm's length is definitely something that I like seeing from this team. I think Boom Esports from last season, the beginning, you can remember how last season in the beginning, they struggled. They couldn't really find an identity for the team. But now, starting from the end of yesterday till today, it seems that they found a nice groove. They understand what each player has to do and how exactly to execute it. Start not looking good. And I think, after so many seasons, I think Boom Esports once again might be the king of Sanhok.
Yeah, they may actually be the kings after all of those commotion. So rewinding back into some of all these instances, it was great work out of Vikings to be able to really stop the streak of CD Alliance, denying them the entire entry point. And Boom Esports, they found that gap forward to the north in order to reach right here because of them pushing teams like D-Savior as well as FaZe to really go toe-to-toe. So that's it. It was just great control coming out of Boom.
Yeah, guys, is the fact that for Claw, they were at a very big disadvantage at that final circle. They were at the bottom side of the terrain.
Yeah, and it's due to his individual brilliance as well by the tail end when his members were knocked down. So he really pulled no stops back, where he know that he have to exert those pressure, and that pressure absolutely cracked the rest of Vikings despite them being in control for a major portion of that scuffle. So that being said, that's a big chunk of 20 points now being given to Claw Esports, or should I say earn in that regards, and that's 12 for MVKE, falling into second place. CD Alliance, absolutely impressive as they slayed all of their nemesis coming in from their home country to be able to score 8 elimination points in this round.
Oh man, I want to see a lot of changes coming through from the bottom side here. We're still seeing the same teams over and over. Surprisingly, though, out of everything, there's all these fights as well. MEC and FaZe get 3 apiece. So, you know, a lot of these teams have been getting... no, not many of these teams are going out with a 0, if you think about it. I think for me personally, anything, you know, getting any points moving forward is a feat in itself. Now, right now, the top spot page hasn't changed quite yet. Boom Esports still maintaining that top spot, but Claw is climbing up here. Today is the rise of Indonesia. It's looking great for these teams. We're seeing teams like Void Donkey doing very well. We're seeing teams like Boom Esports, Claw as well. So it's very fun to see how
They will put some teams into some undesirable rotations where certain players might be picked off. MEC, so far, with their debut run into the season, having Voki with the rest of the pack. Most of the time that we get to witness those fights come from MEC, it was unfortunate that Voki was the one getting clipped first and foremost. So they got to be a little bit more attentive on how they position in some of all these team fights. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, CD Alliance is just making all the right calls and all the right moves throughout the span of those past 2 matches.
surprised that no one has really shifted towards shooting range yet. I mean, it's open area there on the northern side. Compared to yesterday's Northern Circle, which had a lot of a faster rotation, if you ask me, compared, especially till now, you see teams, making a beeline all the way to the top side. This time around, teams are a little bit more slower when it comes to these rotations as well. My biggest concern right now is that because of these slower rotations, getting into the circle is going to be incredibly hard. Granted, to see how many teams already in Rosat 1, 2, 3, just in that general area itself, and over toward Gatka Mountain Hospital, even Georgia Pole, 3 teams already. New Era might be joining that area as well. Now, we're not going to be seeing those early fights, but it's more of like that rotating from outside of the area is going to be very, very hard. Teams like New Era here, the thing is, I'm very concerned for them because they haven't been able to match most teams in terms of firepower. They get singled out a lot as well, and they get picked off one by one. So for me, it's like, okay, now that the circle is hard, what is your game plan when it comes to rotations, and how are you going to be dealing with people stopping you from getting to the middle of that circle?
Yeah, I guess like certain formulas that teams have implemented is that they will try to stall for time, wait for the rest of the teams to move away from the corners of the zone, and then make a late entry in. But speaking of those who are already in the zone, I would safely say that all the Indonesian teams are currently within touching distance of that stage 1 zone where Boom, they've always by default dropped into Rosal. So they can gain that control onto those bridges, and over onto the far end of Yasnaya, there's also the rest of Talent Esports. So I definitely think that they have a whole lot to play for. And if we go back over onto Hospital Grounds as well as the Gatko region, there's also Alter Ego. So far, Claw, that was an impeccable run with them securing their chicken dinner with Red Face Heroics that have brought all those plentiful points by the end, overwhelming Vikings. So we'll definitely want to see a whole lot more of all those crazy plays that this player really has to offer as they now cut by the corners of Ruins. And there is going to be a lurker. I wonder who could that be?
Rotation-wise, right now, looking at the rest of the team, Sem9 coming in from Ferry Pier, choosing to go for a later rotation. This could be good for them, if anything. They could be a little bit more slower. They could meet with VPE on the southern side, maybe take a fight with them, or they could just slowly make their way into the circle as everyone just rushes up northern side. Since everyone is rushing up northern side here, there are teams like Void Donkey who's shifting, but I think most players and teams are just kind of opting to go toward Gatka Mountain, opting to go into Hospital area or even northern and southern Georgia Pole. And for good reason. There's a lot of compounds there. There's a lot of things you can loot for the time being. And it's great for you to be able to hold down these areas and catch people in the midst of rotations as well because there's a lot of cover.
Yeah, true enough. And they could definitely play to the advantage from those areas that they're currently holding out on. Well, when we take a look at the best performing team coming out of Group B, I think it's undeniable that CD Alliance have been very tactical on those rounds in Sanok that have farmed at plenty of full points. Lambo this time coming across and will be sent with a couple of all these tags coming from mastery of Boom Esports. So, like you said, they've already had some of all these grounds being secured, so they can kind of deny some entry points. So DX, they might have to go for the long wraparound through the far end of Georgia Pole to be able to make it into the center, or maybe play around that warehouse again, because we last saw back in day one there was a circle that pulls all the way into Georgia Pole, and there is a certain potential as many teams are doing exactly the same, circulating around Gatka and the mountaintops.
CD Alliance slowly making their way through. Okay, this is fun if you think about it. CD Alliance could potentially pull what they did in the first map or even the first map, just, catching waves on waves of players in the mid of their rotations as well. Since many of the teams are already toward the mid side here, the only two teams that could potentially be crossing them could be SK as well as MEC. Now, MEC, I'm not surprised if they're going to be running into CD Alliance. For some reason, the Malaysian teams always have these, I would say, very, very similar checkpoints. So I wouldn't be surprised if CD Alliance were to take down 2 or 3 teams one more time from Malaysia. Vampire Esports as well, very late to that rotation as well. Now, previously, I think that previous round, Vampire Esports, I think so far today only has, 3 points, which is honestly surprising to me. Granted, they played 2 maps. I was expecting them to get a little bit more, maybe around 8 points in terms of picking off players. I didn't have a lot of hope for them for Sanok because it's such a difficult map to really tell on how exactly you're going to be performing. But the fact that they got clipped very, very early on Erangel is kind of concerning to me. They had a bit of a break just now in between game 2 and 3. So could it be a redemption moment for them? Because they are going to be meeting up with Alter Ego very, very soon.
Yeah, there is definitely a little bit more of that potential for the rest of Vampire Esports, but it definitely is a cause for concern when you are already tanking out the zone. And like you said, they are just about to make their move right across the far west, and that circle shifted into the deeper areas of shooting range, and we're already seeing some battles taking place on top of Mount Gatka. MEC was just holding on to firmer ground. So the rest of Claw, they see this as a great escape if they want to pull back, but it's Red Face this time being caught out by Wicks. Perfect catch, and that kind of sends a little bit of a dent towards the past winners, and New Era coming up with more hope.
Great hold onto the high ground as well. And this is huge because for them to be able to hold on to this high ground for a little bit longer means that they're able to catch anyone crossing into the circle itself. But if anything, for me right now, Void Donkey are the winners, at least for this few stages, because they were inside the circle very early. They have a nice terrain to work with as well. And they've been, I think, actively trying to get pickoffs for players that are in the middle of rotations. D Xavier one more time caught again while they're trying to rotate into the circle. And it seems to be a recurring problem for them the entirety of today. They lose one member very, very early in the mid of their rotation. They weren't able to hit, checkpoints as safely as they wanted to, as much as they did yesterday. So this time around, one player knocked down. They have to change their contingency plans on how exactly they wanted to approach a chicken dinner with just the 3 players. Because individual-wise, D Xavier is strong.
Yeah, they definitely are undeniably strong, but now with maybe a little bit of a firepower remove, they may have to change the way that they approach certain fights. Just being clipped like that. So they gotta fix some of all these rotations because, yeah, they have done this plentiful times before for years with the same roster. Now, looking back into some of the exchanges, Void Donkey so far reaping the rewards every step of the way. Just like you said, they were planted directly on that crash site, getting so much of all that traffic control in their favor, and they could continuously do so while the rest of Talon hoping to cop themselves that compound, which we saw plenty of fights taking place back in day one, whereas the rest of CD Alliance, they went into the white swing, finding themselves the blue shack right across the gas station. This is somewhere upon the entry of Yasnap Pollyanna. So this is a little bit centered around the field of control. So I would definitely assume that the rest of CD Alliance be able to hold firm for quite a long time. As we go back into the recap, it's Schweppes that actually caught one player out in the field. So it's just like what we've expected on these stage 2, stage 3 rotations.
Interesting enough, for just a little bit of time, we saw Sem9 just kind of park themselves over on the Gatka Mountain, hoping to catch anyone rotating into that circle itself. Found nothing, moved away, and as soon as they vacated because the blue zone came in, so did Vampire Esports. That southern side area where Sem9 is crossing is going to be interesting to me, because you have New Era meeting up with Sem9, and I think because Vampire Esports did catch a whiff of New Era and Sem9 ahead of them, they are going to stay back a little bit longer, hoping that New Era and Sem9 get busy. Maybe you can just try and third party these fights, but I think Sem9 this time around learned their lesson. Instead of trying to force these fights, in the mid of rotations, they're gonna try and focus on getting a potential air to hold on to instead. In the, I would say, southern side, a bridge area toward the northern side of Rozhok there.
Yeah, and there's just so little space if you were to play from the southern end. So Claw, they really have to fight their way out in order to make it past those river, while ETN once again activates and does get themselves a great catch up against Krypton. So that late rotation kind of hold the rest of Alter Ego back for quite some time, as they are still spending time by the blue. Alva now the only one left alone, so ETN wastes no time. They want to secure all those hefty amount of points, and just by doing so, it's coming to a close, but they're just hoping that they will be able to get a glimpse, or else Alva could just deny himself, because there's not much to play for right at this moment for Alter Ego.
The northern side of shooting range, I think MVKE could move southern side and take the top side of that mountain there, and they could get a little bit more value in terms of space, in terms of position as well. But at the same time,
or else Alva could just deny himself, because there's not much to play for right at this moment for Alter Ego.
the northern side of shooting range, I think MVKE could move southern side and take the top side of that mountain there, and they could get a little bit more value in terms of space, in terms of position